What began as an experiment to bring my 11-year-old daughter into my business has evolved into Our Young Creators. A podcast, a training center, and a movement dedicated to equipping kids with real-world marketable skills so that they can fund their own brighter futures. We're here to inspire you to turn consumption time on devices into creation time and use technology as a tool to bond and not bicker with your kids. Join us each week as we share the inner workings of our partnership and bring you stories from guests of all ages and from all walks of life on our quest to nurture and to celebrate our young creators. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am so glad you are tuning in today because we have another special guest for you today, another graduate of my podcast in a weekend class, and I cannot wait for you to meet her and hear her story. Before we jump into that, though, if this is your first time watching a video or listening to the podcast, thank you. I am thrilled you are here and that you have found us on Planet Internet. My name is Yang Pratt. I'm a 17-year performing arts studio owner turned chief dreamer and podcaster right here at Our Young Creators. And what we love to do here is teach people how to turn time on their devices from consumerism to creation so that they can share their voices and make a bigger impact in the world. Now, today we have Nicole Thompson with us. And Nicole, like I said, is a recent graduate of our podcast in a weekend class. And we met earlier in the spring, although it feels like it has been so much longer, thanks to how online time works and feels. We took a class together all about being better on video and using video in our business. And since then, we've connected in other groups. And I was so thrilled when she hopped into this class. And now I get to share with you that her podcast is currently live. So Nicole, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Yang. It's always nice to visit with you.
Yes, absolutely. Can you tell everyone a little bit about your journey to become a podcaster? What have you done in life and what are you doing now?
I started listening to podcasts when I started my own business. It's an online web store where I sell promotional pet products to people in the pet industry who want to advertise their business. Learning about being an entrepreneur and a business owner and trying to market myself a little bit more, I started listening to the podcasts because I wanted to learn more. And I became rapidly addicted to the podcasting world because it was so convenient. It was always right there in your ear. You could be on a hike. You could be sitting in your backyard. You don't necessarily have to have the Wi-Fi. And they're right there on your phone. And they are unbelievably educational. And they're free. And I need it free. With going into listening to them so wholeheartedly, all of a sudden it started to trigger me that I said, I have all these messages that I want to get out, and I would love to start my own. In starting to look into podcasting, however, it was a very daunting realm. Every time I'd start to think about it, I would freeze up because there's not a ton of information out there to make it easy to just start a podcast. There's 1,000 different ways to start a website, but starting a podcast is not as simple. Well, maybe I need to retract that statement because you've proven that wrong. I actually had recorded an intro for my imaginary podcast back in November of last year. And again, every time I'd think about doing it, it was a daunting project. So I stepped away from it again. In the end of August this year, I actually signed up for a different podcasting class. And it's a beast of a class. It's huge. And I'm sure it's got soup to nuts of what I would need to do for creating a podcast. But then our lovely Kim White introduced me to your class and said, you have to take Young's class. If you want to have fast implementation, you need this class. And trusting her wholeheartedly and knowing that you're always a shining star, I was absolutely, completely unhesitant to sign up for the class. And I've never been happier with taking any course in my entire life. I had instant gratification within, I know it's titled Podcast in a Weekend, but within less than a day, I had a podcast live. Now, iTunes takes their sweet time in approving podcasters, but Stitcher was right on it. I had an instant podcast on Stitcher. And then a week later, I was on iTunes.
So amazing. And I wanted to say congratulations, because when you were in the class, you were the first person to message me and you said, I'm done. And I thought, whoa, that was so fast. And it's so important for people to listen to this and hear this, because even though you had this huge class, you needed a quick win. And
Yes.
When I started working with Kim on how to prepare for the class and give everybody big wins, it was about, we're going to take little tiny steps, little 5-minute steps, and you're going to get a win. And all those little wins in a very short span of time will add up to this great product, which is your podcast. And like you said before, sometimes podcasts feel daunting and they feel so big and overwhelming. And when you look at a big course in particular, it's like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to take me?
Exactly.
Because I know I've purchased classes which I have never finished. And I hate saying that, but these classes, though, were huge like that, where each video was an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And when you're a busy entrepreneur, you're out there raising kids, you're in your community being active, there wasn't really time to go through such, lengthy and in-depth classes when all I wanted was this thing. So that was really sort of the whole idea behind this class. So I love that you were able to take everything that I set out for a weekend and to do it in a single day, because to me that just says, one, you're an action taker, and two, it is possible when you set your mind to doing something, when you stay in your own lane, when you're focused, when you have people supporting you that can show you the steps and pitfalls to avoid, you can get there so quickly.
And your class was so perfectly bite-sized. Each lesson was this big, and it implemented so much with each lesson. So at every step, you could feel the progress. You could feel the wins happening. You could feel that crescendo building before you got to the big release of Here My Podcast is Live.
Yeah.
I know I messaged you at one point that I was getting really excited, that my heart was pounding out of my chest because I had made so much progress and I couldn't believe it. It was just the culmination of something that I'd hoped for a really long time, and it was so much easier than I could have ever imagined.
That's music to my ears. I just love hearing feedback because this is a brand new class that literally happened within the span of about 3 weeks. Our good friend who you mentioned before, Kim White, kind of challenged me, and she said, I don't have 8 weeks to go through your course. I want to do it now. And I had another friend and she said, it'd be kind of cool if we could dive into this in a weekend to find out if it's a good fit before doing lots more stuff. And so all those pieces together kind of fell into place. And Kim is always advocating messy is beautiful. Being able to jump in and do this. And I wasn't sure how it was going to end up. But now when I can sit back and I get messages from you and all the other classmates, and they're telling me that they have this win, that just gets me so excited, because that means that the world is being blessed with amazing people whose messages need to be heard. There's that one person out there waiting for you to be a podcaster. And now that you're a podcaster, you can reach an audience that you weren't able to tap into before. And I'm just, again, so proud of you.
Thank you so much. And it's so exciting because I keep logging into our application to see how the analytics are doing. And I've already hit, in just over a week, I've already hit almost 500 downloads. And I don't know if that's good or bad in the podcasting world, but to me, it's everything.
And that's a really, really huge win. And I want to make sure people know where to find your podcast. Tell us what your podcast is called and who it's for.
My podcast is called the Build Your Wealth Podcast. And I've designed it for people who want to start a business, entrepreneurs who've been dreaming of starting a business, but they don't necessarily know right where to start. I give a lot of business tips about the things that I've done that have helped build my business to success. Mm-hmm. And I'm not shy about telling people about my failures, because it is important to fail forward in business. I feel very strongly about that. You need to learn from your failures. Failures are nothing more than lessons. And it is super important to not let the failures get you down, and take that lesson and build upon it.
Mm-hmm. And I love this notion of failing forward fast, and you're not afraid to share that, because I think it's kind of a stigma in our society where we're taught to learn that failure is not good, that we've failed and so we're not good at something, when in reality, like you said, it's this clue. It shows us that we're not on the right path, or something wasn't quite right in the process. So when someone can come and listen to you and learn about how you overcame these failures, it helps them to get to their success much faster. And kind of like podcasting, when people think about creating an online business, it's also a daunting process. You know, there's a million people out there touting a million different ways to do it. But what I love about what you're doing is you're making it also really bite-sized and actionable. People can listen, they can go take action and do something that day, or really think about what the next step is that day to get to the next place. So you're giving them this step ladder that's going to get them faster to their destination than they could ever get by themselves.
Yes, because when I started my online business, I did it completely on my own. I knew nothing, and I had to make all the mistakes, and just had kind of a little mini epiphany one day of what can I do to help people not deal with these frustrations, not constantly fall on your face and have to really pick yourself back up. It's one thing to stumble, but there were several levels where I felt like quitting because it was too hard, and it doesn't have to be. I've been in business for 6 years now, and I look back at the beginning and I can't believe how far it's come and where I started. And I also see where I could have done this so much easier had I just done this, or this. And that's what I want to help people with, is seeing that you don't have to climb the mountain to get to the top. You can definitely take the paths around the side and get there a lot easier.
And that's so good. And so many people need that hand and those tips and tricks to get to the next level. And I want to point out something really important that you said, that you asked yourself, how can I help? And I think when I look across everyone who took this class and the people who take it in the future, the one thing everybody has in common is that they're all wanting to serve others. They're wanting to help people fast track their way because they've stumbled, they've fallen, and they've taken it upon themselves. You've taken upon yourself the responsibility of saying, you don't have to do this alone. I'm here to hold your hand. Reach out to me if you need help. And so I just love now that the impact that you were making before with live video is now amplified, because a podcast is something that people can tune into when they're on the go. And when they need you the most, you are right there in their ears, reminding them that they can do it because you've done it And now you're teaching them the shortcut of how to get there. So I want to say thank you, first of all, for coming to this podcasting space with that heart to serve others.
I'm really I feel so blessed to be able to take this medium to be able to give something back. And I mean, I spent a lot of time thinking I was alone. And it wasn't until I found podcasts that took that loneliness away, that took that solopreneur away and made it to where now I'm with a group of people who, and there's lots of people out there, and you don't have to feel like you're the only one and you have to sit in the little quiet corner of your house and become an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people misunderstand the term entrepreneur and think that it is like something you do all on your own.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of takes a village, and you have to realize when it's time to reach out for help.
Yeah, and that's a really, really, really important key takeaway, that when you become an entrepreneur, it does feel lonely. But now that you know that people are out there on the other side of their earphones on a podcast, and the fact that technology these days really allows us to meet like this and interact in real life, so we don't have to go it alone. And I just love it that this podcasting space embraces so many different kinds of podcasts, because everybody needs something a little bit different.
Right.
Now, I know that your podcast just released on iTunes. I would love for you, after we are done with this interview, to come back and put the link for your podcast right below, because I want to make sure that people listening here live on the replay or even on the podcast subscribe to your podcast, because I've listened to it. I've given you a review because what you're doing is so important, and I want to make sure people have access to that.
Thank you so much for that. I would be so excited to do that, and any new subscribers are more than welcome. Any reviews, I'd love to get some feedback on how I'm doing. So some new aspects other than my teacher, who is beaming with pride at the moment, and I'm sure is giving a bit of a biased review. But I will take it. I'm delighted to have been a part of the class.
Now, what's really cool too is that everyone listening can now help Nicole get to a really important place inside of iTunes. There's something called the new and noteworthy section. When a new podcast launches and people are there to subscribe, people are reviewing and rating the podcast, that helps to elevate her up inside of iTunes so that more people can find her podcast. So if you would take just a few moments, subscribe, listen to her podcast, and then head back over to iTunes and give your honest review and give it a rating, because the more people who are reviewing and rating this podcast, the more people who are going to get to listen, because iTunes will help her showcase her podcast in a really important place. So I'd love for all of you to be on this journey, because it's a great one.
As far as podcasting goes, it is by far the most fun project I've ever worked on, and I'm excited to release new episodes. I release new episodes every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and it's a little mini thrill to me every time I see my notifications go up and I see the new downloads happening in our application. I'm just having so much fun with this, and I can't wait to release some more.
And I can hear it in your voice too, that this is something new that you've been wanting to do for a while now. And so you've released this thing to the world. And yeah, it's an exciting time to be able to serve in a bigger way, make a bigger impact, and reach more people with a podcast than you would ordinarily. I want to make sure before we wrap up, Nicole, that people know how to connect with you online besides listening to your podcast.
Probably one of the fastest ways to connect with me is through Facebook. I'm at facebook.com/ I believe it's Thompson Nicole J. And you can hop over to my Facebook page. It's just Nicole Thompson. And you can like my page. You can message me there. I post my live videos there, which I also now repurpose in podcasting. So if you don't catch it on the live, you can always catch it on my podcast.
Fantastic. And before we wrap up, if there is someone out there listening who thinks, I think I might want a podcast, what advice would you give to them?
Call Young.
Well, thank you for that vote of confidence.
Honest to goodness, they need to get in touch with you, because that was the easiest process I've ever been through in anything I've ever done online, including just setting up my Facebook account.
That is so amazing. And so for everyone listening, we are going to open the doors to podcast in a weekend in just a few short weeks. So definitely, if podcasting is something that you've been dreaming of, it's been on your wish list, definitely message me here on Facebook or over on Instagram and let me know, because the world needs more amazing podcasters. All of you have a story. All of you have lessons to teach, and a podcast is such a great way to make that happen. Nicole, I just want to say a big thank you to you and congratulations for being a brand new podcaster.
And thank you, Young, for making it possible.
You are more than welcome. Well, everyone, I want to say thank you to all of you for watching us live, catching the replay, or listening over on the podcast. I'm Young Pratt, the Chief Dreamer here at OYC, and we've just had an amazing conversation with brand new podcaster, Nicole Thompson. I'll catch you all very soon. Well, there you have it. Episode number 151 of Our Young Creators, the podcast. If you had any takeaways from today's episode, or you're ready to become our next podcast in a weekend graduate, head over to Instagram and tag me at Our Young Creators, or send me a direct message so we can connect. Until next time, my friends, I wish you an amazing day. Cheers.